This is pork stew with creamed potatoes. Anytime we can go out there and do something that's going to help the community or people, we as Cajun people will get out there and get it done. Hurry up before I run out. I only got about 10 more gallons left. Hurry up. My name is Curtis Louvier, and a lot of people know me as Big Lou. I'm also known as Pork Stew Lou. Ooh, that smells good, huh? I have a catering business, and I also do a lot of charity events. Anytime we have somebody who's in need, I'm going to be one of the first people to jump in to volunteer to get that done for the community. You're very welcome. Thank you. I was born in a small town called Laurelville, Louisiana, and it's so small now that they call it a village. My father was in the oil industry and he was away from home. You know, those guys would work 10 days offshore and they'd come home for 5. And my mother worked a job where she worked a shift from 3 to 11. We were 8 kids. So at 14 years old, I was in charge of cooking supper, and my mother would just say, okay, this is what we have, and this is what you're gonna fix. And she would just kind of give me instructions, whether it was a soup, rice and gravy. Sometimes it was a very simple meal. It would be cornbread and milk, you know, chocolate bread, just very simple meals, you know, with a large family. We might not have had all the fancy clothes and the bicycles, but we had plenty of food and lots of love. I worked in the oil industry for a long time, but unfortunately about 5 years ago I was laid off and I became a full-time caterer for weddings, barbecues, baptisms, so food has now engulfed my whole life. Pork Stew Lou is the name I was given when I started doing boucheries 7, 8, 10 years ago. A boucherie is when the community would get together and slaughter the hog. What they would do is to distribute the meat between each other, and every weekend somebody different would slaughter their hog in the fall and they would distribute the meat because there was not a whole lot of refrigeration. My task in the whole event was feeding the people who were slaughtering the pig for the day, and the meal was always the backbone. Okay, and they would cut it and they would make a gravy with it, which is a roux-based stew. And what I look for when I do a pork stew, I want to pick up that piece of backbone with the bone and see the marrow out of it, and it's in that gravy now, and it helps to thicken and intensify the flavor. Because you imagine marrow, you know, some people say it's God's butter. Well, that works for us. We love fat. We'll just, and down it goes. We're not very far from the Atchafalaya Basin, and people make a living doing crawfish and trapping and alligator hunting, and that's the kind of uniqueness of this area. It's very diversified. We're blessed to have all these things right here at our doorsteps without having to pay a king's ransom for it. Duron Farms, they're kind of like some of the last strongholds of the rice industry. The owner is Jeff Duron. He has sister and nieces who also, they work the farm with him. Their other entity is Teche Valley Seafood, where they process and sell live crawfish. We're going to see the farm and the rice that's been harvested.
There's long grain, and there's medium grain, and there's short grain. We grow pretty much all long grain here.
And they're preparing all the fields right now for crawfish. Back in the day, crawfish étouffée was very unique. Raising crawfish is a money crop now. We live in a part of southwest Louisiana between New Iberia and St. Martinville. And both of these towns are dominantly sugarcane country. There's thousands and thousands of acres of sugarcane. And if you were driving through and you looked, all you would see is stalks sticking up. Charles Poirier cane syrup. Charles is one of the most unique, hardest working people you'll ever meet, because Charles does syrup in the most labor-intensive way a person could do it. He has a crop of special sugarcane, okay? And when it's time to harvest the sugarcane and make the syrup, he goes out there with a special cutter and he cuts the sugarcane, and the sugarcane falls. And they hand feed the sugarcane stalks through the press, and it falls into his boiling pots, his sugar pots, and he starts cooking the syrup. And Charles is so meticulous about his syrup. He sits there and he has wet towels, and if it bubbles, he's wiping the sides of his pots, and he's also skimming the scum off of it so there's no impurities. It's like gold almost. It's no impurities in it, and he takes that stuff and he cools it, And then he bottles all this stuff. He bottles all this stuff himself. And he sells every ounce of syrup that he makes. He never has to go anywhere and say, please buy my syrup. The demand for it is way more than the supply. While I'm here, I'm gonna get some cane syrup. I use them to make syrup cake. And like the old French people, gâteau. Yeah, that's what we're gonna do. And this is and I tell everybody, that's the best syrup cake you'll ever eat in your whole life. Your syrup is the best, for real.
Like I said, thank you.
Sit in the rocking chair for a little while, think about life. I worked in the oil industry and I didn't have the enjoyment when I woke up of saying, you're gonna work on something today that you love to do, and you're gonna pick what you're gonna do today. You know, and it's like when I sell food. I'll get up in the morning, people say, well, you haven't posted anything, what are you gonna cook? I was like, well, if I'm gonna sell something, I'm gonna post it tomorrow. When I wake up, I'm gonna sit down outside and have a cup of coffee, watch the sun come up, and say, what do we feel like doing today? And then that's where we're gonna go. Any meal that I cook is done here at my residence. It's all cooked and it's all prepped here and it's all saved, and you come in to my home. You're actually coming into my home to pick up your meal that I prepared for you. Perfect day for a roux. Oil 325. I'm getting where I need to be here. Cajun cooking goes against every rule of proper cooking. We do our thing with what we have. We're looking for a chocolate color versus dark mahogany. Earlier today, we went ahead and we made our roux. I like to use a metal spoon because the heat doesn't transfer up that stainless steel, and most people use wood. When you use wood and your paddle's wearing out, that means you're eating wood. The wood is in the roux, so I never use a wooden paddle. And done. And we took the marinated pork that we marinated yesterday. You'll hear the sizzle. And we took it and put it into the pot, just enough to get it kind of browned off and just to get it cooked. Cajun people are very unique about technique and finishes on, you know, and they're proud of their dishes. They're not just, you know, not tell people all the time, if you're in a hurry, you probably don't want to cook. You know, it has to be the project for that day. You have to be able to say, okay, what I'm working on today, and get it done and not have anything else hindering what you're going to do for the day. And then tomorrow at the event, we're going to put a scoop of creamed potatoes. We're going to put some gravy, and then we're going to put the meat, and then we're going to offer that to the public. It's a project for the village of Laurelville, and they do it to have like operating capital. And being this where I grew up, my hometown where I was born, you like to see their little village prosper. And they're doing a very good job. The mayor is doing a bang-up job with the community. He's got a lot of events that they do now.
That's perfect.
Thank you.
Absolutely perfect.
It has to have touched you some kind of way in your lifetime to where that event becomes special. You have to have a love of people and a love of your community, and you'll do whatever it takes, because we don't want to see stuff like that go away. It's like a labor of love.